Hello guys, this is Damien Lacombe here. The one that I did is Are You Afraid of the Creepypasta Tales series. I have a note for you. I had a problem with that copyright thing that's on episode 4 of the series. And due to the copyrights from DHX Media, originally Deke Company and owned by Cookie Jar, I would block the audio and put the original recordings from this episode. So I hope you enjoy this, and let's this episode start. Welcome to the Are You Afraid of the Creepypasta Tales, episode 4. Arthur, the Lost episode. Arthur is a kids' television show that has been around since the late 90s and still on to this day. It's one of the weirdest reality-based shows that sets examples for kids. I grew up with it and still watch it on weekday mornings when I don't have school. The story, though, will explain that has soured me from buying other old tapes on episodes on tape. I had written this description of the episode a few years back and left it on my computer, and after much though, I decided to release it. The story. I wish that tape had survived long enough for me to get some screenshots from it, but alas, the film tore badly, and during repairs I lost all but 5 episodes. The tape was bought secondhand a month ago from my normal secondhand media store, the Corner Store. For those who don't live in central Alberta, it's an old music store that became a secondhand book and movie store some time ago. I have bought almost 100 tapes from him, which all which work fine, except from this one. I bought the tape because I'm trying to find the old episodes of Arthur again to bring back good memories of my childhood. I love that show and still watch it to this day. All I know, they still make it, and the new ones are nothing to. The animation looks cheap and rather rushed. The stories are often dull, and the focus on mental illness in children, like one about the kid with Asperger's, feels out of. Characters are changed. The bullies are now good guys. Francine is even more of a douche, and DW no longer has moments that make her seem like more than a spoiled brat. The show has been ruined. To escape this mess, I went out to buy some old episodes on tape. Home recordings were of particular interest, so I could see some of the old commercials that had aired at the time. I bought about $5 worth of the old tapes, each at 50 cents. They all seemed to work fine, each with properly labeled episode times, recording dates, and time stamps. The one that caught my eyes was the title, Death of Grandma, recorded on March 5th with a lone time 1998 with a lone time stamp. 1524 lost the channel. It was an episode I did not know, from an air date that seems almost too old to be trusted. I noticed that title has been written on a patch of white out. I decided against scraping it off. Perhaps it was recording something in the people's life. I decided to watch first. The beginning was the opening of Arthur. The theme sounded a bit tinny, probably due to bad recording equipment. The tape had issues that troubled me, mainly the tracking. Just couldn't get it to stop being jumpy and awkward to watch. I eventually gave up. Eventually, where there was a line of fuzz across the top, it sat down. There was no opening title for the episode. It showed the Elwood City Hospital, something I wasn't very familiar with. The sad music was playing. The only one car in the parking lot was the Reeds. It cut to Arthur and DW in the waiting room. Arthur was reading a scare your pants off book. while DW pestered him about the story. The volume was bad, make it hard for me to listen to. I'll do my best to recreate what they're saying, but it's hard to remember. DW said, "Why won't you play with me, Arthur? I'm bored. Why are we even here?" Arthur said, "Shut up, DW, I'm trying to read." The parents came down the hall. The mom was crying and the dad looked shocked. DW ran to them, asking why Arthur was ignoring her. The dad told her to sit down. Arthur's dad said, "Now, kids, I'm afraid that we won't be seeing Grandma Foreigner again. She's gone to a better place." He broke into tears. As always, the voice acting was pretty good. Arthur dropped his book in shock and stared. They sat there, unmoving, the tape rippling with static as the parents crying looped over and over. It cut to them at home. The mom was sitting and talking on the phone, looking sad but acting professional. DW was staring at the TV, but it was at a black screen. Baby Kate was just sitting there, unmoving. The dad made a wedding cake, his face grim. Then the doorbell rang and Arthur opened the door. It was Buster. Buster said, "Hey, I heard what happened. You want to go down to the Sugar Bowl and talk?" Arthur said, "Sure." The Sugar Bowl appeared, but there was no music, only wind blowing. I know it was the fall in the episode as dead leaves littering the ground. Buster was sitting there, no talking, no moving. It reminded me of the still frame that sometimes appears in the old TMNT show from 1987. Buster spoke, but his mouth was not moving with the words at all. And Buster said, "We should go do something fun to cheer ourselves up." Arthur just stared at him, eyes blank. He jumped suddenly to the funeral. Everyone was in black. There was no music, only crying. The casket was pure white, draped in flowers. It showed Arthur, his face wet in tears, before the imagination sound cue came in. The casket opened, and it wasn't Grandma Flora. Instead, it was her mom. Her face was heavily wrinkled, like in the episode where DW got lost in the mall and was thinking what life would be like without her. Her teeth was showing and the color was off, being more of a yellow than a normal white. Her eyes suddenly opened, but they were not human, but rather black button eyes, like on Arthur's stuffed bear Stanley. He screamed and everyone vanished, leaving him alone in the church. The walls fell in, exposing a red and black streaked sky. DW's laughter could be heard, high and rapid. There was a loud bang and the images stopped. Arthur was sitting there with his face pale. His mom was whispering something to Dad. DW was crying. They were walking in single file along to the coffin. As DW got close, you could hear buzzing flies. He swallowed and wiped his eyes. The coffin lid was open. He looked in and there was a shot of his face. He was enraged. There was a flash of light and the sound was gone for a moment. Suddenly they were in the car again. The episode ended. As for the commercials, they weren't anything amazing. There was just some ads for Chick-fil-A and KSPS. The next part did have a title called Recovery. It was written on a plain white background. I could hear DW screaming like when Arthur punched her before the episode started up. The family was at home. It seemed a continuation of the previous part. DW was in a room, solemnly playing with his dolls. The parents were rustling over pictures, and Arthur was in his room. When Pal came, it started wanted to play. Arthur got up and kicked his dog. Kicking him, the soundtrack is now consisting of Pal's yelps before slamming his door shut. Kate started crying. Arthur grinned his teeth and the scene faded out. The next scene showed that it was nighttime as Arthur crept out of his room with his backpack on his shoulder. He walked past Pal, who whined and drew away, before grabbing his coat and sneaking out. He ran for a full 3 minutes. The streets are in shadow. There was a good doing music. Very soft, normal, happy music that we all knew from the show. But that ended though when he ran to the graveyard. He stopped at Grandma's grave, staring at it. There was an owl hooting sound, and he started digging, crying out in pain as he did. His bare hands were soon slicked in dark red blood, and he stopped, finding the coffin. He was crying now. The coffin opened, and Arthur was inside it. His eyes were closed, and his glasses were shattered. His family gathered around, staring down, crying. Kate was screaming, and for whatever reason, D.W. Pal in the open grave. Although his body was unmoving, it was still him running. The screen went black, and there was a low sound that rose to a high clatter. It was the table slap. This grave started to spin in empty space, opening and sucking the world into it. I could hear D.W. yelling, "Kate did it!" and over again, mixed with Pal's cries of pain. Stanley appeared, inspiring down through the blackness. His head was torn off, and the cartoony organs from the episode where Arthur cuts his knee started trailing out from the body. There was a series of loud thuds, and it showed Arthur again, sitting there in his sugar bowl. Buster was unmoving on the floor beside the bowl, his eyes gone. The red socket started to stream blood, and Arthur screamed in rage. There was a few white flashes, and it showed him in prison, wearing the black and white clothing that showed always used. His face covered in the scars they showed on bad guys sometimes. His last words were louder than the other speech clips. Arthur said, "I killed them all! I beat Kate's brains and stabbed D.W. I killed my dog! My parents ate poison! But I didn't do it! She did it! Flora did it! She made me kill them!" Then it went to the credits. It was the normal cheery music. I was stunned, and I had to rewind the tape to see what just saw if it was real or was just a dream. When I rewind the tape seized up, so I took the tape and opened it up. The film had split an inch from one reel all the way down to a few inches from the other one. Either I just had witnessed one of the worst things ever to be associated with a kid's cartoon, or I'm just off my nut. I never know. I will never know. I remember it pretty well, though, suggesting if it was real. If this was a joke, if it was made by some sick person as a joke, I'd give it a thumbs up on making something that seems so real. Like, as it was actually part of the series after all. The episode had never cut out like it says on the tape, unless it had on what had originally aired originally been recorded. But now I think of it, since the show always covers real topics, very real ones, could this have been a real episode that only aired once? They did one on DW's bird dying, but never one on abuse or anything. If it really was a real episode, I almost hope it is. I'm injured, and I really want to see it again to prove to myself that I'm not going mad. So, that was the Arthur Lost episode Creepypasta, or this episode. Wow, that was twisted, funny, and really creepy. I mean, really, it's an Arthur episode that was fictional, and it really executed very good. It's like more drama. It scares me to death when I finally read this creepypasta. So, I hope you enjoyed this creepypasta, and I'll see you in episode 5. Episode 5 will be Dead Bart, the Simpsons creepypasta, created by a fictional creepypasta writer, who was about about Bart dying after sucking out his plane from the plane. We'll find out next in episode 5 of Are You Afraid of the Creepypasta Tales?